It's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Yes, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for connecting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always start off with COVID, and I was going to put this question to rest at the beginning of the year, but it just seems like it was such a shapeshifter for all of us. So ultimately, 5 years ago, we were probably entering a pretty deep phase of this COVID thing. Ultimately, how did you get through that time period, and how has it reverberated into what you're doing today?
So during COVID, I was actually working full time as a registered nurse. That is actually my trade. I'm a forensic nurse. And I was working in behavioral health. And so I did not get to stay home like a lot of folks did as an essential worker. I was one of the workers that had a little piece of paper that in case you got pulled over, you were allowed to be driving. So
Yeah.
talk about wild. But yeah, throughout that time, that's what I was doing, was still working. And then I was actually in school full time at that time. So it was very interesting. I have been, now navigating since then, still taking some precautions as, most people are just as a nurse, general hygiene, hand sanitizer. I mean, that's how I was born and raised as far as a nurse goes. It's been a unique shift because I was actually, like I said, in school and did my executive MBA in healthcare as a postdoc degree. And right at the tail end, I decided to hit the throttle full on, published a book, launched the company, and just I've been rolling since.
Wow. So if we had to get to the brass tacks of what you do every day for a living, the kids always get the truth out of us. If I put you in front of a bunch of grade school kids at career day and one of the kids was like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How would you answer
Yeah.
that child?
I would say that I help leaders, different companies gain their confidence, navigate any setbacks, and do that through speaking, coaching, and just really looking at ways to develop programs for personal and professional development, which to a fourth grader would be like making you a better athlete,
Yeah.
learning how to think quick on your feet, and making good decisions.
So what did you want to be when you were 12 years old? What was your dream job?
I want to be a flight nurse.
Okay. Okay. So how did this happen? Take me back to your childhood. What were these elements of becoming a nurse and becoming kind of a beacon for leaders? And how did all this happen? How did you evolve to this point?
Well, as the oldest of six, it was kind of that underwritten statement and title that you had to be the leader, right? So
Yeah.
you had to plow through everything. Always told no because, it's your first time parenting.
Yeah.
Talk about younger kids. It's like do whatever you want, have fun. So I paved the way as far as leadership goes there. Was always very outgoing and personable. I didn't have one certain clique. I got along with everybody. And so I just wanted to help people. I had one of those tender hearts, I guess you could say, that I've prayed doesn't harden with everything that's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And just knew I wanted to be a flight nurse. I found out later I get motion sick really easy, so that probably wouldn't have worked out very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, went to nursing school, had quite a few hiccups along the way with overcoming adversity and, poor decisions. And so that's really where that mindset leadership piece really, really took on for me to let others know like the past doesn't have to define you. You can still get to where you want to be. There might be detours in life, but it's still doable.
So, who's an inspiration? Who was that heroic force for you to evolve and to become who you are today?
I would say my fifth grade music teacher. So her name's
Okay.
Pam North. Yeah, loved her, sweetest lady, still keep in touch with her. And she was one of my biggest cheerleaders since fifth grade.
So, I'm curious how much of being in the nursing world has lent to you helping leaders now? I mean, they seem like very separate worlds and entities. How have those kind of the Venn diagram come together to kind of help you evolve to this place of helping leaders get to a better place in their career?
So that's a really, really great question. When it comes to coaching executives, business owners, nursing is a helping profession, but it's also the number one trusted profession. And so a lot of nurses come out of nursing school not thinking that they're a leader. But I had a different approach. I want to get into a lot of the associations, get on boards as soon as possible to really utilize my voice and leverage for folks who maybe couldn't. And so it really ties together because executives, business leaders, any other type of person needs to be able to feel empowered to utilize their voice at the end of the day.
So the one thing about leaders and executives is it's that entrepreneurial spirit of taking risks. And
Yes.
as you being a practitioner of helping those leaders and executives, what's the biggest risk that you've ever taken? Something that you fall on that's helped you develop as a professional?
I would say the biggest risk would be returning back to school and actually being rejected from Duquesne University when I went to go for my master's in forensics and asked the dean, hey, if things can get reversed on my end for a couple of things I needed to take care of, could I be considered? And they did not think that was going to happen. And I say, by the grace of God, it was turned around in 2 days and I was enrolled in the university. So that would definitely be a risk I took. I put myself out there and was willing to like try to, get things together very, very quickly.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. When you look at the world, the professionals, whether it's in your field or otherwise, if you could meet one fascinating person on the planet that might help you on your journey, who would you love to meet and talk to?
I would love to meet Ann Baylor. So
Okay.
she is the founder of Annie and Pretzels.
Oh, yeah.
I think she'd be so interesting to talk to. It was actually her testimony, her story I heard at a speaking event, which I wrote my first book on, and the stars aligned that she provided me a testimonial. And I have never met her in my life, but she has endorsed my book and gave me some shout outs and podcast. And so I only think it's right that I also give her a shout out as well for just being an awesome person. But I would really love to just sit down and just have a cup of tea and, see really, really how she got from where she is to where she was.
My son Miles is on the spectrum, and his first job that he ever had was at an amusement park,
Yeah.
and he was at an Annie's pretzel stand, and he always loved them. That was like his favorite thing growing up. So for him to be able to be in there and to be up close, that was pretty cool. So
That's awesome. It was always a treat when we were growing up.
yeah,
Oldest is six. We were not very well off.
yeah,
So if we'd go to the mall, those things that don't exist anymore,
uh-huh.
we would get Annie and pretzels. And so it's just wild to me that things came full circle.
Yeah, that's the way it was for him. It was like anytime we made it into a mall, that was it. That was the treat. That was the trophy at the end of the day. So let me ask you this. How have you balanced, obviously you have to be a model and example for professionals and leaders. How have you balanced taking care of yourself along with doing your job to the best of your ability? What's been your overall operating philosophy every day?
Mine is to wake up and just hit the floor with some form of gratitude.
Yeah.
Fact that I can get out of bed and, maybe only one joint hurts that day. So,
Yeah.
and also praying I can get my cup of coffee to stay hot because I have three children, 7, 5, and 3. So it is chaos in the morning. But before they wake up, I will kind of just set that time aside for me, figure out what the day's hopefully going to look like, be adaptable if needed. And then at the end of the day, just reflect on, what went well, what are some areas for improvement. And we also do this with our kids and our family around the dinner table. Just like, hey, what's one thing that you did really well today? Actually, that's usually what we end on. What's one thing that you can improve? What's one thing that went well? Because we always want to end on a positive. And then what is a characteristic or something that your brother or sister or mom or dad did for you? So it kind of just ties together.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. In this new incarnation of working with executives and leaders, was there a moment where you knew you made the right choice, that you got into the right uh, profession, I mean, segueing out of nursing into this, was there a moment like that, or did you just know? Was it just something that was implicit?
I think it was implicit because I did my executive MBA in healthcare.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's kind of a no-brainer for me. So, yeah, I definitely think I made the right decision, but I also help entrepreneurs that are getting up and going and seeing both of them shift in their thought processes or approaches is probably one of the most amazing aspects of it because it's not something I can do for them. I can help elicit some of those features that maybe they're not seeing, and it just empowers them to have that confidence and resilience and just ability to keep pressing forward.
So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight and you ran into the 18-year-old version of you that's getting ready to charge out into the world, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the wisdom you've accumulated, what
Yeah.
advice would you impart on that young version of you?
I would say slow down, slow down. And just be mindful that every single decision that I make, we make, impacts others, whether we realize it or not. Like we have a lot of weight when it comes to that. And it took me a while before I learned that.
So let's say you walk into a room of everybody that you've worked with professionally, whether it's colleagues or clients, anyone that's known you in a professional sense, and you could go to a podium in front of that room and tell them one fun story. Maybe the first concert you went to, jumping out of an airplane, outrunning a bear, some fun story that everybody would see you in a different light, maybe humanize things a little bit. What
Yeah.
would be a fun story you could tell them?
Well, since you just said it, I'm going to. So I did just skydive last weekend,
Oh,
jumped
cool.
right out of a perfectly good plane, had the best time of my life. We went right through a cloud, and it was like you see nothing, white, and then ground. It was like, whew, that was pretty wild.
That's wild. So it's really all about the anticipation, isn't it? Once you get out of that plane, I'm sure it just turns into
Oh, we flipped right out of it. There wasn't even a jump. We went straight into a flip. Talk about epic. It was
yeah,
wild.
that's crazy. So of everything that you've done and accomplished and evolved to, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
I'm the proudest of actually being a mom because medically I maybe wasn't in the cards. And also I wasn't always the best people picker, I like to say. So I was like, I don't even know if marriage is in the cards. Let's see. So I would say being a mom and just being able to give back to the community, those are the two things that I'm proud of.
Speaking of community, what do you like the best about being in Pittsburgh?
Oh man, there's so much to do. A lot of people think that it's not very diverse, but it really is. There's a lot of culture here. Obviously, it's big for healthcare, tech. So how being in healthcare has been nice, but I'm born and raised here.
Yeah.
So I really don't know much different as opposed to like traveling.
I mean, Mr. Rogers, do they have any kind of shrine there for him?
Of course.
I
Yeah.
mean, is there a museum? Is there
There
what
is, and it has all of the original, the OG puppets and everything.
wow. So
It's amazing.
is there like a set, like a mock set or
There is, yes.
wow.
And they also have the Heinz History Center, which is going through recently. It was just announced some transitions, but they have a section there too. It's pretty cool.
Okay. Well, I know that coming from jazz radio, Mary Lou Williams was really big and started there. And then
Hmm.
she came to Kansas City. And as far as I'm concerned, just because of the way that humans have been, she was a black female and she should have been one of the best jazz musicians of all time, hands down. The way
Yes.
what she did and how she did it was above and beyond anybody that was playing at that time, easily,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
There's
know.
a whole jazz session out here too. There's a whole setup that goes through the history, and sometimes it travels, but it is out here in the
Okay.
History Museum.
Okay. Well, I know that there's a lot of musicians from Pittsburgh that I interview that I know of that glow about the scene and what's going on and the history and all of that. So yeah, it's Kansas City kind of has a unique relationship with Pittsburgh. I know that we've done some things that we've kind of because Mary Lou really, really grew up in Kansas City during the Prohibition days when Pendergast was
Hmm.
here, and we really celebrate that kind of cross highway. And I think I haven't been to Pittsburgh, but I feel like there's a level of Pittsburgh that's very akin to Kansas City. You get pigeonholed into being the blue collar steel town, but you got the food, you got the art, you got the culture, you got the sports. There's all these things that make it a very unique cauldron of city.
Yeah. Except for the Pittsburghs and the Chiefs. When we start talking football, it gets a little.
But we went through 30 years of darkness. When I was growing up, I used to go to training camp and it was like there was never ever. I mean, we watched so many footballs go to the side of the uprights, but now that we got St. Mahomes, I mean, that's all you really need is one pick. you
Yeah,
know?
this is true. It makes a
And
difference.
and I feel bad for Pittsburgh because they gambled on Russell Wilson, which that's the biggest bust of sports ever. And now are they thinking about Aaron Rodgers? Is that
I
something?
don't even know. It's always one day to the other. Well, I'll be interested to see how the season goes. I'm
Yeah.
not like die hard, but I like to go to the games and eat
Yeah.
nachos and hang out.
Yeah. I when I was a kid, I had to make a decision on a Monday night football game between the Houston Oilers and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I picked the Steelers. So I used to have like the Steelers like jackets and all of that stuff, and so I have a little bit of a sports history with
You
them.
probably had like a starter's jacket. You remember those back in
Oh
the day?
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Those things were classic. So so let me ask you this: everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, everyone that you work with, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm pretty outgoing, that I'm a straight shooter. I don't beat around the bush, that I'm a hard worker, loyal, transparent, and dedicated.
So if anyone wants to hire you, they want to get your book, anybody wants to reach out, any of the good business, where's the best place for them to go?
On my website, so ShaneaClancy.com.
Okay.
It's hard to spell. I'm sure you'll put it
I will.
somewhere.
I will definitely put it in the show notes. Yes, for sure. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time and best of luck with everything.
You too. Thanks, Joe. It's been a blast.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.